Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, a historic episode of Off Script Film Review. I'm excited you guys are here with us. This is episode 250 of the show. Not just historic because it's a unique number, but also because we're covering two historic films. Kinda. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare from Guy Ritchie. His new feature is out. Set in 1939, involves a little bit of World War II shenanigans and a couple of Nazi busters starring Henry Cavill and Alan Ritchson. We're also going to take a look at the Book of Clarence, which came out last year. We missed this one in all the Oscar hustle and bustle. Jeymes Samuel's sophomore feature about a young so-called Messiah in the time of Jesus of Nazareth, starring Lakeith Stanfield. A little funny, a little long, but I'm excited to talk about it. There's definitely some redemption here. You guys got to stick around for the review. We're going to talk about the show, right? The off script, the show proper, where we've been, where we're headed, how things have been going, some favorites, some maybe some misses we've covered on the podcast in the past. We'll get to all that in our middle segment. Before we get to everything, we need to talk about the news. Our first story this week, Quentin Tarantino's The Movie Critic is not happening. Oh boy, this is huge. This is Quentin Tarantino's final reported film. He's been saying since 2014 that he's only making 10 features. Kill Bill 1 and 2 don't count. That's only one movie, and this last one's going to be it. We've been hearing all this speculation about what The Movie Critic is going to be, when it's set, who it's about, who's going to be in it, his casting director. The state of California gave him a $20 million tax credit to start shooting it, and now it's not happening. Is he stunlocked? What's going on here, Andy? Like, is he too scared by his own career, or does Tarantino have a history of writing scripts that maybe don't come to fruition? What do you think?
He's a man paralyzed by indecision. More than anything, he's been kind of putting up this idea. He's got a vague premise. Was starting to put together some stars, kind of fan castings, like everyone and their mother was going to be in the Movie Critic. But we don't really have an official reason other than his representatives are saying he's having a lot of scripts thrown his way. He's maybe going to be considering some other stories to tell instead of that one. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
We don't really know exactly why The Movie Critic isn't happening. I'll give you the punchline up front, but we know for sure that it's been a flurry of possibilities. Originally, the movie was rumored to be about a writer working for a fictional porno mag in the late 1970s, and then it started to evolve with rewrites into something that was kind of a spin-off of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. People said that Brad Pitt was going to be in it, reprising his character as Cliff Booth. Then casting call stuff like Margot Robbie was going to be in it, and Tom Cruise was rumored to be talking to Quentin Tarantino, although Hollywood Reporter says here now that never actually happened. Olivia Wilde reportedly read for this thing. Ultimately, like, it never hasn't really come into anything. And what something Hollywood Reporter points to in regards to Tarantino is this isn't the first time in his career that he's written a script that hasn't really come around, or he's written something that almost got made but then didn't. In fact, inversely, if you'll remember with Hateful Eight, he had written that script and then shuttered it and said it wasn't going to happen. And then at a special charity event, they did a table read, and he kind of fell back in love with it and ended up producing it as a feature. Movie Critic could still happen, but what we know for sure is right now, whatever Quentin Tarantino's 10th and possibly final feature is going to be, it's not going to be this one. So I don't know. I guess he's back to the drawing board, I guess. Any hopes? You think he should go back to Star Trek? Where are we at, Ed?
Tarantino's never done like a franchise film or basically anyone else's script in his whole life. I don't think he would start at this point. As cool as it would be to see him do something like Star Trek. Yeah, I just don't think anything like that's going to happen. I'd rather see something original from him anyways. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I've heard really out there rumors like, it's going to be Kill Bill 3. The idea, there was always this idea because at the end of Kill Bill, there's someone's daughter is a very young daughter is, she says, find me in 20 years and we can, fight this out. And so there's speculation that was going to be it, but that's just more fan casting. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, keep it on Off Script for more. We'll keep you up to date with what Quentin Tarantino's got going on. In the meantime, he's heading back to the writer's room. Another director who's actually out and about, Martin Scorsese. God, he's over 80 years old and the man hasn't missed a step. We covered Killers of the Flower Moon on the show. Now it looks like he's looking at a new project, possibly a Frank Sinatra biopic, with Leonardo DiCaprio to star. And Jennifer Lawrence? I actually hadn't heard the Jennifer Lawrence news. Andy, what is this about?
Right. So, two of Scorsese's next two movies have kind of been announced. We knew he was doing this Jesus biopic. I don't think that's the right word for that, but a Jesus centric narrative based on a book. Um, Scorsese has often made films about faith, his Catholic faith, so that's no surprise. But back to back after that, he's doing this Frank Sinatra project. That yes, Jennifer Lawrence is going to be playing his second wife, Ava Gardner. This isn't a sealed deal, though. Tina Sinatra, daughter of Frank Sinatra, owns the Sinatra estate, and they have to get her green light before this thing can actually be made. So I hope they're not jumping the gun. I can't imagine they are. Apple might get involved as far as financing, which we know they were more than happy to do with the $200 million Killers of the Flower Moon. But it's saying that Sony is actually in the lead to produce and distribute this film.
It's crazy. He's still putting out work like this. I was just listening to an interview with Ethan Suplee, who starred in Wolf of Wall Street alongside DiCaprio, and he was explaining how like Scorsese just simply does not miss a step. I know that was like a 2014 feature. That was definitely a ways back, but even still, 10 years later, he's still doing incredible work. And he's not the only one. Ridley Scott is 86. David Cronenberg's 81. Francis Ford Coppola's got Megalopolis coming, I think, late September, and he's 85. That is, if that. I was just reading today there may be some distribution deal coming through out of like France to help him get that movie out. I guess what I'm saying is like it seems like artists just got to keep making art, right? Like I'm genuinely impressed. If I was Scorsese, I'd be retiring to like the south of Italy,
Yeah,
right? To like drink wine
absolutely.
and do nothing. Like my God, he's still out here hustling.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's impressive that he's still going at it. I mean, same with other directors like Clint Eastwood is in his 90s, just wrapped up Juror number 2, his that court drama that he's doing. So yeah, you can still keep at. It's amazing, like you said, because yeah, I would be retired sipping mojitos on the beach
Dude,
somewhere.
Eastwood is 93. He's the front runner for
Yeah,
oldest still working
yeah.
director. Insane. God love him. A24. We got to talk about Civil War. We covered Civil War last week on the show. And also, real quick, worth mentioning, got pushed off YouTube for it, which was super
Oh
lame.
yeah,
I still don't know why. Yeah, we posted
I can
our
get
Civil
into that. I
War
can get into
review to
that.
YouTube. Well, please. Yeah, I never actually read like the email Team YouTube sent us. What'd you find
Well,
out?
it says, so we posted our episode like we normally do on YouTube, full thing, and uh, about 24 hours later, I get a notification from YouTube saying that our content's been pulled because not usually it's because of copyright violation, which we're not guilty of ever, but
Of course not.
this time we were in violation of misinformation policy, and I was like, misinformation policy, and then someone explained that like we're saying things like, hey, we highly recommend Civil War, and because they have
God.
bots
Yeah.
moderating, that's they're pulling those statements as something very dangerous or calling for violence, and so that's why it's getting pulled. And I appealed it, and I explained this is a film review, we're talking about the movie Civil War, and that's probably another bot that moderates that, because then they still banned it. So really crazy that it got pulled for that reason.
Team YouTube, we're sorry. Please let us put our review back up. In the meantime, Off Script is not the only people getting hurt by the automated system revolution. A24 has been putting out Civil War ads that are AI generated. It's rough, man. A couple of these showed up over the week. I've got them on screen if you're watching the video. Hopefully on YouTube if this review makes it over there, and on Facebook. They're fine looking images. They're just like what downtowns of various cities in the United States. They've got one of Chicago.
War torn,
here.
yeah.
They've got one of and they're war torn and things are blowing up and smoky and that's all great. But like, boy, none of it's legit. It's all just cooked up in a computer.
Yeah, it's strange because these posters actually all came out the week after the movie. Like the movie comes out on Friday, and these all hit the internet early or kind of over the weekend as promo material. And it's showing these devastated cities like Las Vegas with the Sphere concert venue on fire, or firebombed, and yeah, none of that happens in the movies. You don't see any kind of destruction to any cities really outside of DC, and also it's not that kind of movie. It's not about an actual civil war. It's more about, like we said, it's about journalism. It's about about what the country might look like in the midst of a civil war, but again, not actually showing us any scenes from big cities. So it's really kind of strange. It did get people's attention, but again, these are all AI generated, and that's really what's kind of grinding everyone's gears.
It's funny because when we produce the show each week, one of the things we do is make a promo for Instagram, like a graphic with our show headline and a couple of posters from the movie. And like I noticed last week pulling posters down for Civil War from IMDb, there's a very limited selection, very few, almost no set photos. Like there's hardly anything. And it's weird because A24 has put so much money into Civil War. We're about to talk about its performance at the box office just after this story, and it's doing well. It is their biggest return thus far. It's got an IMAX release. You got to get way out ahead to get into IMAX theaters. Like they knew this was coming. It's strange to me how little promotion there's been. Yeah, and then this is coming a week after the fact. Like just strange. I don't know. And it's a bummer that this seems to be what they're leaning on. It makes me wonder if like the original poster is AI. I know it's what, a shot of like a couple snipers posted up in the Statue of Liberty like torch, and that shot's never in the movie. So looking back at that, I'm like, is this real or is this just like the one you guys published and ran with? You know, it's fine looking AI, right? Nobody on Facebook would know, but it's lame. You guys should pay artists. You're a company that puts out art. You know, that's kind of a layup. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, there's no reason you couldn't pay a digital artist to render similar posters. It's probably better looking as well. A lot of people pointed out there's a lot of inaccuracies, like the part of the Chicago skyline is wrong, or like a building has been cut pasted, and it's like you could have found an artist that would have done a more accurate depiction of the cities and all of it. So yeah, it's uncomfortable. A lot of people don't like it, and like I said, it's weird that all these posters came out after the movie was out. And I know they're trying to drum up business, but again, also none of that happens in the movie. We don't see any kind of like battles in these major cities.
Yeah, it reminds me of like companies putting in like fake trailer footage in the middle of trailers, like to show you something that might be in the movie. Like super lame. Come on, like give us a bit of the goods. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. False advertising's no fun. And one thing's for sure, it's not hurting A24. Civil War draws another #1 weekend, 2 weekends in a row. Crazy, with $11 million. Just beats Abigail, that new horror film that we haven't seen from Radio Silence. Andy, what was going on at the box office this weekend?
Another big weekend for Civil War, came in at $45 million total. That's again huge numbers for A24. Their biggest film was Everything Everywhere All at Once, which culminated in about $60 million. So they're probably going to pass that with this movie. And again, we know that A24 is looking to lean into kind of a little bit bigger, a little bit more mainstream films, and so this is kind of the start of that. Godzilla vs. Kong, healthy again at #2, approaching 500 million. It's another huge hit for Legendary, along with Dune Part 2, which is still playing in some places, which is about to cross 700 million. Really impressive for that franchise. Again, not like a superhero franchise at all. And we had Kung Fu Panda 4, and also for any anime fans out there, Spy Family Code White was #4 at the box office. So good numbers for that little film.
I can't believe that King Kong or Godzilla X Kong is the second biggest film of 2024. I know we have a lot of 2024 to go. We're only a third of the way through it. But it reminds me of like at the end of last year when people were like, what was the biggest movie that came out last year? And I'd be like, Super Mario Brothers, before Barbenheimer. And I don't think even still we might have beat Barbie, and they everybody kind of had this moment of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like you don't think in your head that like Godzilla X Kong is going to be the second highest grossing feature of the year, but dude, it plays so big internationally, great for the family, 4-quadrant feature, can't go wrong, right? Like it's perfect. It threads the needle everywhere it needs to. It's goofy at the same time, exactly the film it's supposed to be. Obviously, they're going to be making a lot more of those. In the meantime, Civil War's still doing good, and I'm not super stoked on Abigail, but I keep hearing it's good. I've heard nothing but good things. Everybody says it's a fun flick. Maybe we'll get around to seeing it at some point.
Yeah, it's doing okay. It's underperforming a little bit. It was about $30 million film. It's a little expensive for horror. Usually horror is a shoestring budget, but we got bigger stars, probably some bigger effects. But that market's also been a little saturated as of like there's like a new horror movie every single weekend, and they're kind of all chomping into each other's piece of the pie.
Well, speaking of pie, we should get to our formal reviews of the episode. I'm going to be taking the first one here, so please excuse my clumsy delivery. The movie is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. It's 1939, and the British are being pounded by Germany and mainland Europe, and Winston Churchill wants to hit back hard. His answer? Stop fighting under accepted gentlemanly rules of engagement and create a group of warriors who become the first deniable secret operatives to strike behind enemy lines. I wish I could tell you I wrote that, but I did lift it from IMDb. Yes, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is Guy Ritchie's new feature starring Henry Cavill as Gus March Phillips, our fearless, roguish leader, along with, of course, Alan Ritchson as Anders Larson, Henry Golding as Freddie Alvarez, Alex Pettifer as Jeffrey Appleyard, Hero Finds Tiffin as Henry Hayes, and Isa Gonzalez as Marjorie Stewart, who doesn't actually pal around with the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. She's kind of doing her own thing. See, what they've got to do in this film is cross around the north side of I know, here we go. Cross around the north side of Africa to get to a secret Spanish base where the Germans are hosting U-boats, and they're filling up U-boats with supplies, and they're sending them out to the Atlantic, and they're blowing up ships everywhere. So if the Allies want to get the U.S. to come over and help with the war, they've got to figure out a way to dispatch the U-boats. They send over our group of gentlemen to go and just knock the whole thing out. Blow it up, blow it all to hell. That's the goal of the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Before they get there, Isa Gonzalez is going to go and kind of smooth things out, have a conversation with Till Schweiger, who's over there playing Heinrich Luhr. He is a big Nazi bad guy. He's the leader of the bad guys over there. And she's got to kind of smooth talk him until our guys sail in and under cover of night and hopefully blow some stuff up and take some things out. Have you seen the trailer? It's going to feature things like Henry Cavill bursting into a room and sticking his tongue out and mowing dudes down with the silenced machine gun. That's pretty much what the movie is. It's a whole lot of Nazi violence. It's a whole lot of laughs. It's the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Andy, what'd you think?
Man, I really enjoyed this. This is a whole lot of fun. It's It reminds me, it's like a Mission Impossible kind of setup. You got to put together a big team. You got to pull off this impossible mission, but it's in period appropriate. 1945, World War II. Really fun cast. It's funny. There's great jokes all along. Everyone's got funny lines. It is, about shooting Nazis and blowing up Nazis, and so there are some more serious moments, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of action. It gets a little bit confusing in the plot. Again, that's what happens in Mission Impossible as well. You eventually you're not real sure what's going on or who's got to do what, but everyone's so much fun, and they're all like good friends, and they all have a very distinct part to play. You got your swimming expert, your explosive expert, your gun guy, your femme fatale, and Isa Gonzalez, who's a Hollywood actress turned spy. All these different fun parts, and it's a whole lot of fun. It's not super serious, but it never claims to be. Everyone's having a great time on this set.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much I ended up enjoying it. It's based on the 2014 book Churchill's Secret Warriors, The Explosive True Story of the Special Forces Desperados of World War II by Damian Lewis. I kind of forgot that it was based on a true story. I guess I kind of walked into the theater thinking it was going to be more of like a like Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards kind of film, right? Like a bunch of fun Nazi killing, but characters who are ultimately just as human as everybody else. And uniquely, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare doesn't go that way. It leans more into the kind of the wacky comedy side of things. Like our characters are less Inglourious Bastards and more like Looney Tunes. Like the way they approach firefights is so goofy and carefree that they're like wildly calm about it, just melting through dudes. And we've got this like strapping group of gentlemen who have mostly worked with Ritchie in the past. He's got some characters back. Cavill played the man from Uncle, right? He was the lead in 2015 for Guy Ritchie. And then Henry Golding was in The Gentleman, 2019. The opposite, of course, of ungentlemanly warfare, and something that I think Guy Ritchie's uniquely poised for, because typically his films are very proper British, right? They'll either be some kind of street film a la Rock and Rolla or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, or something like The Gentleman in 2019 or Operation Guerre de Rouge or whatever that movie was, starring Josh Hartnett, Jason Ruse de Guerre. Yeah, that movie that came out early last year that nobody saw because it had some super weird deal. And of course, he did Oh yeah, The Covenant. Like Ritchie's been all over the place lately, but this is something that feels uniquely like fresh for him. Feels uniquely British. Hits home, and I think it plays to his strength. This is an area where he can like have goofy, fun action, big strapping dudes, say some clever British line, blow things up. It's perfect. Like this is where he makes his best kind of films.
Yeah, and I think one of the strengths of this is this incredible cast. We have the lovable Henry Cavill, who is so charming. He's got this great smile, and he's both crazy and also not too worried about dying. Like everyone has a little bit too much plot armor, but you're having so much fun you don't care. Al Ritson, who's in Reacher, the show on Amazon Prime, is in this playing Anders Lawson as a Dutch person. He is the biggest guy I've seen in a while on screen. He's back. We're getting back to like, Schwarzenegger size guys on screen. He's so much bigger than everyone.
Yeah.
Really impressive physique. He's one of those guys looks great firing weapons and things like that. And he's a lot of fun. Does this Dutch accent. Isa Gonzalez is great as the femme fatale, and she's I don't think she's not British in real life, I don't think, but she has a good British accent. Carrie Elwes. Babs, I worked on this name. Olusen Mokun, who is also in the first Dune film. He plays kind of the island guy who knows how to get things. Carrie Elwes is kind of the leader of all this. Rory Kinnear as Winston Churchill, who's got a small subplot dealing with some politics kind of back home while he's greenlit this Black Ops operation. And so the cast is really good. It's almost too big sometimes. Henry Golding doesn't have enough to do. Like, I really wish we would have had a little bit more of him, but it's a great cast.
Henry Golding needs more lead work. Like I think he got done dirty by that second G.I. Joe movie, G.I. Joe Snake Eyes, which he was the lead for. And I think it underperformed, but like the kid's got leading man energy. He should get more work. Also, Till Schweiger, who plays our villain Nazi, very sweaty, very gross, big German. I totally forgot. He's one of the Inglourious Bastards in the Tarantino film. Like, he's one of the good guys in that movie. So like, nice to see him take a turn over here. And our last kind of Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare man, Hero Fiennes Tiffin plays Henry Hayes. He's kind of our young shipwright, like keeps the ship moving for the guys, keeps them on track. I couldn't figure out where I knew him from. He is Ray Fiennes' nephew. That's the gag. So like, Ray Fiennes couldn't be in the movie. Like, he's been in previous Guy Ritchie pictures, but he was like, hey, I got some work for you. I know a kid who could be on set a few days. So there you go. That's your Ministry. The film's kind of structured funny. It works good for where it's at. You've got kind of like these three big action pieces through each act, usually towards the end of each one, leading into the next one. But our kind of group of core dudes, they're on a boat most of the movie, which is a little weird. The film opens, they kind of get together, we learn a little bit how they work, but then for the most part, they're sailing around Africa. That's most of what they're doing in this movie. They do stop at a base to pick up a friend, which is good stuff, and one of the better sequences of the film. But then a lot of it, they're kind of on the back burner, while Isa Gonzalez and Babs, can you give me that name again, Andy?
Olusen Mokun.
Also worth mentioning, he's in Book of Clarence. Only actor who's in both the movies we're covering today.
Yeah.
Right, shout out. Yeah.
Great role in that.
Yes, the two of them are on base at this Spanish base, kind of, trying to ease tensions and work their way into the good favor of Heinrich Luhr, played by Tills, so he can keep his guard down while our boys sneak in cover of night and blow these two tugboats up that will hopefully stop these other ships from pulling out. It ends up a little too complex, I think, in who's who, like Andy said, just a bit too fat on the cast list, but otherwise, like, it does end up being a pretty pleasant 2 hours, mostly because of this like wild devil may care attitude of our characters. Like, they're just so fast and loose. And Cavill's really funny. God, there's this great scene in the open where he offers a guard a cigar on the way out of like an office, and the guard like looks at his friend guard, and they kind of like nod to each other like, yeah, I guess I'll take one. Right before he goes to grab it, Cavill like yanks it away and laughs at him and walks off. Like, perfect kind of like puckish rogue, good dude gone bad dude kind of good character, along with like the goofy beard. Like, he ends up seeming like he's got a lot of fun in the picture.
Yeah, this movie is so funny. There's great jokes from start to finish. At the beginning, when we got a break, Henry Cavill's being taken out of prison for this super dangerous secret mission, and when he's getting briefed, he points to the tin of cigars, and it's like, so okay, if I have one, and they're like, yeah, sure. So he just grabs like a handful and keeps and then he keeps putting extras in his pockets. It's like things like that just really irreverent kind of character, and it's like that the whole way. There's funny scenes, funny dialogue,
It's
a
true.
lot of fun. I think the only thing that kind of doesn't work for me is it's a little bit too safe. I feel like no one's ever really in any danger. There's a little bit too much plot armor to go around, so that could probably be the stakes could feel a little bit more dangerous from time to time. But I think that's my only complaint.
Yeah, like that's what I mean by that devil may care kind of attitude. Like on the one hand, it's fun to watch our characters just like dominate a bunch of enemy soldiers. But on the other hand, like, dude, they kill so many Nazis in here. I had to go back and check, like when we put the trailer footage together for the package we're running. If you're watching on video, you can see it. And make sure like there was nothing particularly violent in the first 30 seconds just so we could upload it to YouTube. I'm not even sure I got on there in the first place. Like it is a wildly violent picture, but you're never really concerned for our guys. And I figured, okay, well, in the third act, it'll really get dicey, right? Like when they actually get to this base and they meet the big bad and like the 300 German soldiers that are all there, that's when it's going to get gross. And it does, like, it kind of turns into this montage-y kind of sequence, which is good and has some tension. But like, I think the movie's really not making an effort to stress the viewer on the hazards that our characters are experiencing. It's much more like kick back, relax, just put popcorn in your mouth and keep watching the feature. And like in that way, it's fun. Like it's exactly the kind of fun I think it's exactly the kind of tone I think a movie like this needs to have. It's not too serious. It's a bit self-aware. It knows what it's doing. And yeah, like I said, paced kind of oddly, a little long. I think it's just over 2 hours. Now 2 hours flat. I'm sorry, but otherwise, like, not too shabby. Not many thoughts on the soundtrack. And Andy, what else you got?
Yeah, the soundtrack is fun as well. We have good tunes along the way. Again, if you've seen some of his earlier work, things like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch, it's kind of a spiritual successor in that way, where we have a big cast of wild characters having fun from start to finish.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. Lots of sunlight. Lots of shooting outdoors. Lots of shooting on water. It was nice. Andy and I go see a lot of movies for this podcast. We're definitely used to seeing green screens, so it's really nice to like see a movie where they're like actually out filming in the sun. I appreciate it. Book of Clarence also has a lot of that. So, Andy, would you recommend the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare?
Yeah, I would. It's a ton of fun. Really good cast. Again, Henry Cavill, Alan Richson, Isaac Gonzalez, Babs Olusunmukun, Gary Elwes, Henry Golding, and more. There's action from start to finish. We're hurting Nazis all day long. It's a great time. The only thing again is that it plays it a little too safe. Or I don't feel like our characters are ever in any real danger. But outside of that, it's a fun time, great time of the movies.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Lots of fun. I don't mean to say it's the kind of movie you watch while you got your laundry on, but when it inevitably comes to streaming, throw it on. You'll have a good time. And if you get bored in the middle of it, it won't be long before you're tuned right back in. Like, good pacing, brings the action when it needs to. Funny. Cavill's really great. Richson's really great. You should definitely check out Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I can't believe it, Andy. We're recommending a Guy Ritchie film in 2024. Bananas. But it's not bad. It's really not a bad time. I'm kind of impressed. I hope he turns out more features like this. With that, we should move into our next segment. Andy, what do we call this?
It's time for the death of cinema. So we are going to actually be celebrating episode 250. 250 episodes of Off Script. Again, we originally started in November of 2017. So we're 7 years into this podcast. Still waiting on that Spotify deal. Anytime, any day now.
They can't afford us. That's
so we decided to look back at the last 50 episodes, which is about the last year and a half, and go through our favorite movies or episodes, other things that stand out from the last 50 episodes, and also some of what we're looking forward to.
I
Go
was going
ahead.
to say real quick, I want to jump in here. Looking back at the last 50 episodes of Off Script, 200 to 250 has been a great run because that is nearly January 23 to now. And 2023 was a huge year at the movies. I know we already covered our top 10. I swear we're not just rehashing those again. But boy, we had so many great bangers. Like we came out of the pandemic. 2022 was a little slow. Boom, we're on track. 2023 is huge. So yeah, I want to talk about some favorites and some maybe misses, maybe not so favorites, and what we're looking forward to in the future. Andy, I gotta run to some of my favorites here. Do you want me to blast off first, or you want to hit it? Where you at?
I'll go ahead and I'll run down through my favorites and very briefly tell you why. I'm still going to start off. This is a little bit out of order. Dune 1 and 2. Dune has been life changing for cinema. It's people have compared it to like Lord of the Rings, a huge new epic, really changing. It's evidence of changing tastes, where the superhero genre isn't dominating like it once did. Love those. The Zone of Interest, probably the most important movie of 2023. Incredible film, very dark, very meaningful, incredible sound. After Sun, a huge surprise, from a movie that I had heard forever was good and that I should see, and I just was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Festival buzz, like every other film you hear about. Incredible film by Charlotte Wells and performance by Paul Mescal. I'm gonna go more quickly here. Barbenheimer, the huge summer fad from last summer. John Wick 4, one of the best action films of the last 5-10 years. RRR, our Indian film, which was our most watched YouTube review. Most of our reviews get about several hundred views. RRR is up to like 29,000. Huge video. Skinamarink, probably the scariest thing I've seen since Hereditary. I still won't rewatch it. I'm still too scared. I'm not ready yet. It's still haunting my dreams. Cocaine Bear, just because the title is so outrageous. The title and trailer were way too good for the movie to ever live up to those standards. And my last one on this list is Babylon, which was just a movie that's grown on me more and more over time. Still misunderstood completely. It bombed. It didn't get any awards. But man, is it a great movie.
This is actually perfect. We didn't plan this. I swear this isn't a bit, but my films go in ascending order, going back and then pushing forward, whereas Andy went back. So let's move forward from January 2023 with episode 201, Babylon. Stellar. Dude, I love Babylon. One of the few Blu-rays I bought last year. I thought Babylon was so cool. I hope in a decade the world is kind to Babylon. I know they weren't when it came out. God willing. January 2023, also episode 203. Skinamarink and Tar, just as a double feature. My God. Rarely do we do films that are so so great, back to back on the show, but both tremendous. And then 1 week later, we did RRR, which was like, we had been doing YouTube before, but that was launched 1,000 ships. Like, I got so much more into growing the channel on YouTube. We've had incredible growth over there, like really great things going on. If you haven't seen our reviews, go check it out. You may be watching us there right now. To that episode 211 in April, we had Navalny.
Yeah, Navalny.
The only doc I've got on here, we don't do a lot of docs on Off Script, but I've recommended this to other people. Nobody's watched it. And like with recent news of Alexei Navalny, like it's been even more meaningful. And one of the rare films that we watched on this show that I thought like, man, I'm so glad we were doing this show and I got to see that. Really important. You should check it out. Barbenheimer, July 23. Insane. Episode 221, I'm sorry, was Barbenheimer. Crazy back-to-back, just like Skinamarink and Tar. Wild. Episode 240, Zone of Interest. Huge. That was just in January of this year. And then episode 248, just a few weeks ago, with Late Night with the Devil, was bonkers. Late Night with the Devil is super rad, dude. I'm still thinking about that movie. I don't know if I have one that's my favorite. Out of the last 50, it's probably Barbenheimer. God, it was such a big deal. We rarely do we even title our episodes anything like particularly meme-esque. We usually just go with the names of the films. Not Barbenheimer week, baby. It was Barbenheimer all the way down. It had to be Barbenheimer.
Amazing
It was
time.
always
Amazing
Barbenheimer.
time.
Incredible.
Yeah, amazing time
Such a
in
great
film.
time.
I was just when you get your film to be like meme worthy, where everyone's just making memes of both before it ever comes out, like it's going to be a hit.
Yeah. Like just a blast. Like we liked covering it. We liked talking about the news about it. We shared memes about it. We did it on the show. We covered it after. Like the runaway success. Whether or not Barbie carried Oppenheimer or Oppenheimer carried Barbie, like insane. Like welcome back to the movies. People say Top Gun Maverick brought the movies back, but like dude, Barbenheimer was like the greatest. Misses. What did you not like? We have so few, but I bet we have similar answers. Andy, what do you got?
Actually, I had to make my list right now because I forgot to do worst. But actually, a lot of it is the superhero genre, which I love comics. I read a lot of comics. I'm the total target audience, and man, I cannot stand most of these. So just a whole slew of them: Ant-Man 3, Shazam 2, The Flash, Aquaman 2, and Madam Web. Were just a trend of severe decline in superhero film, particularly this year with Madam Web. Oh my God, it's so bad. And so was Aquaman too. But The Flash was supposed to be this big deal. It was supposed to be this big kind of reset moment maybe for DC. And it was absolutely terrible. So forgettable. Some of these movies like you'll never watch again. Real bad. Outside of that, Indiana Jones 5. That's the other one I have is like absolute worst. Because that's the other thing. It is. We do need to be fair and like we don't go and see bad movies very much. If we hear something is bad, we generally will just not go and see it. But sometimes we don't know ahead of time, and we're always going to see the big superhero stuff, no matter how bad it is.
Yeah, that's true. Like we're definitely big on the risky watch. If there's nothing like surefire good out that week, we'll watch something odd or maybe check out something unique on streaming or go back and dip into something that we missed last year, like Book of Clarence coming up shortly. The biggest miss for me, I think, in the last 50 has got to be Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Like I'm like in a way, I'm glad. Again, it's one of those movies that I never would have watched if it wasn't for this show. So like I have nothing but off script to thank for like enlightening me to how bad that film is. But like, it's a film that like I truly can't even in the note so bad it's good people like don't abandon all hope ye who enter here. And that uniquely is positioned opposite Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We covered both of those in episode 207 in February 23. That might be one of our worst double features, right? Like back to like I remember walking out of that second movie just being like, this is gonna be the worst show we've ever done. Like just terrible all the way down. Dripping with cynicism. Episode 207 would recommend if you want to go back and listen to one that's God, just a slog, but fun. I mean, for us to cover, right? Because we can hammer them, but ultimately, films we've grown from, films we've learned something from. What are you looking forward to? What do you want to see? What's coming up? What's on the horizon? What's next?
Well, kind of, but before we get to that, I wanted to mention, like, again, we have all these superhero movies on our worst list. That gets me into something that I have now dubbed, way too late, the MCU aside. I messed it up. Aside. Yeah, we've seen the stark drop off of the superhero genre, but particularly the MCU over the last year and a half, 2 years, last 50 episodes for us. The only really good film has been Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is kind of a standout. It's a James Gunn film. And of course, things like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But the MCU, as we knew it, this absolute juggernaut at the cinema where no movie could fail, no movie could be bad, where they have Endgame is the second highest grossing movie of all time. And now they can't really get a good movie out. All their like major IPs or superheroes we want to see have yet to be in theaters for a long time. We had a delay because of the strikes. The next phase of Marvel isn't really starting until next year, next summer. There's one Marvel film this year and then 4 next year. But we've seen this huge decline, and also tastes have changed. And I mentioned this last time. I was like, maybe some people have kind of grown out of this, because if you were 20 or so when Iron Man came out, you're approaching 40 and maybe it's not as interesting. But we've seen a huge shift in taste. And again, like last summer when we saw the Barbenheimer trend, and both those movies almost made $1 billion. Neither one of them of the superhero genre.
Yeah, it's true. We've covered a lot of superhero movies over the course of this show, and it doesn't seem like it's getting much better. Don't sell the MCU short, though. They do have that Kraven the Hunter coming out with Sony Pictures soon, right?
Oh,
like that's soon. So that'll be out. That'll be another Madam Web. I mean, maybe I'm assuming like Madam Web level energy for that on the internet, right? Like people are just going to brush it off as like, oh yeah, Another junky one from the people who made Morbius, but we'll see. Like, obviously, it doesn't represent Marvel, but to the wider public, it kind of does because they're comic book movies and they're kind of Spider-Man adjacent. Like it all starts to feel as goofy as the rest. Obviously, DC's pivoting. Looking forward to what James Gunn's got going on. Additionally, I really want to see that Mickey 17. I really wanted to see that this year. Bong Joon-ho's new feature. It got pushed to 2025, so I guess I can look forward to that next year. In the meantime, I also kind of want to check out that Alien Romulus. I don't know. It could be fun. I'm a little skeptical, but it might be something. And I keep hearing Amazon's got Lord of the Rings, and they're doing something with it. I'll believe it when I see it. I haven't seen them shooting anything. I haven't heard pre-production. I don't know if they're making a Lord of the Rings feature. That sounds bonkers, but we'll see. How about you, Andy? What are you looking forward to?
I am really looking forward to, and I'm going to have to wait a whole nother year for this, is James Gunn's DC Universe, which will kick off next summer, 2025, with Superman. And then that will launch all sorts of, not all sorts, but the first phase of the new kind of DC universe, and we'll see what that's like. We also have things like Joker 2 this October, which I'm really excited about, the Batman 2 at some point. I'm excited for anything that Denis Villeneuve does, Dune 3, or he might do some other sci-fi before that. And also kind of the return of the auteur directors like Bong Joon-ho, Yorgos Lanthimos. I heard that his next film, Kinds of Kindness, which we briefly mentioned in the last few weeks, is almost 3 hours long. And I'm like, that's what I want to see. I want to see a 3-hour Yorgos Lanthimos film.
Yeah, me
I've
too.
heard it's weird. I've heard it's aggressive. Like, let's go.
You should put that on a T-shirt for Off Script. That's what I want to see. I want to see a 3-hour Yorgos Lanthimos picture. Like that's the spirit of the show right there. Most importantly, I'm looking forward to more episodes of Off Script. We love doing the show. It's a lot of fun. It's a perfect excuse for us to go see movies and talk about them. So here we are. We're just gonna keep seeing movies and talking about them. That's the plan. Here's to another 250. God, I can't wait to do this when we're around 500. That'll be bonkers. I guess 300 is the next big anniversary. But boy, Anyway, love seeing movies. Thanks, Andy. I like doing this with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure, and we're still here, and we're gonna be here for another 7 years at least, another 250 episodes.
That's right. What we may not stand as long as is the hierarchy of Christianity, which is what our next film's about. The Book of Clarence. Andy's gonna be taking the summary on this one. Andy, please take it away.
The Book of Clarence. So this is the sophomore follow-up for Jeymes Samuel, who did The Harder They Fall, which was a Western that came out on Netflix in 2021. This is an original script by him as well, about Clarence, who is the 13th, or attempts to become the 13th apostle in biblical times. Clarence is a bit of a street rat. He fences stolen goods. He sells substances. He's not well liked in the community. He owes a lot of people a lot of money, and he realizes, hey, let me come up with this scheme to kind of co-opt religion. And there's this guy named Jesus who a lot of people follow. So I'm going to be like him and get money and power and kind of reestablish myself that way. This is of course played by the great Lakeith Stanfield in a very large all black cast. We have Omar Sy, David Oyelowo, Alfre Woodard, Tiana Taylor. I almost said James McAvoy. James McAvoy is in this. He is not black. But it's a really big cast. And the thing about Jeymes Samuel is that he brings tons and tons of style. And if you saw The Harder They Fall, he did it in that movie lots. He's got some slow-mo. He's got some supernatural stuff, some surreal stuff, really popping soundtracks, a lot of style. And it's funny. There's gags left and right. It's a good time. And like I said, it's mostly an all-black cast, and they play a lot of the titular characters of the time, such as Barabbas, John the Baptist, Judas Iscariot, the 12 disciples, the Virgin Mary, Mary Magdalene. These people from these biblical stories are all inhabited by black actors purposely, which is a lot of fun. Of course, this scheme to become the 13th apostle eventually goes wrong, and he will have his comeuppance. But it's that's our premise. That's where we're starting. Zach, what do you think?
Book of Clarence is a lot more fun than I thought it'd be. I was looking forward to watching it last year, and then we kind of missed it, and I didn't hear much about it, and thought, okay, well, whatever, maybe we'll get around to seeing it. And like having seen it now, I can confidently tell you, like, it's a good time. It's paced oddly. That's the one thing I would say might be odd about it. It's got unique pacing, and I think that's because Samuel writes, directs, and composes his own features. He did the soundtrack for this, which I've been listening on Spotify since. It's great. You should totally go check out. Jay-Z's on it. D'Angelo's on it. It's crazy. Like a lot of good work that way. But like one of the things that I think is most striking about this feature is where it's shot. It looks so good. And when he shot The Harder They Fall, it was a Western. He did it for Netflix. Great cast. But like you could shoot that out in the middle of nowhere with some prop buildings, right? Like that's a little smaller. The Book of Clarence is filmed in Matera, which is in Italy. It's a historic region that actually suffered Roman occupation back in the day. And he pointed out when I told him this gleefully before the podcast that pretty much the whole world suffered Roman occupation back in the day. But regardless, it's such a great looking setting. Like it lands Jerusalem perfect. I think it's supposed to be like 29 CE in the film. Like regardless, like what we're seeing here feels so spot on. Like, and the premise would remind you of something like Monty Python's The Life of Brian, right? Like false messiah character, biblical historical comedy kind of thing. But Samuel manages to bring something unique to it because of like where he's coming from that I think maybe Python hadn't cracked onto, namely in a largely black cast. He said in an interview with Variety that he doesn't see this as like a biblical story through a black lens. He sees it as a lens of like his worldview, because the way he sees it, Jesus was hood. He's like, Jesus was a man of the people. He came up from the streets. Like the government didn't like him. Roman centurions in this film are much like police officers, right? Where's your identification? Let me see that. Let me see what you're about.
Stop and frisk. Yeah.
Right. So the idea of Jesus as like functionally one of these characters isn't that crazy. And then of course you've got the other end of that society, Clarence, who's just like you're every normal everyday dude who's just trying to get by, right? He grows a little lingonweed on the side, and he's hustling from time to time. But otherwise, when he sees an opportunity, he's going to take it because he's not nobody. He has to prove it to himself and to the world that he is somebody, that he's going to hold space, as his mom tells him, which I think is really meaningful.
Yeah, it's so funny in such a good setting, and part of what always makes you laugh is so we have our classic biblical characters, but then we have people like Jedediah the Terrible, Asher the Torturer, and they're like, you have to go see Asher the Torturer and free all his gladiator slaves. And it's like, what? Say what again? Asher the Torturer is played, of course, by Abs Olusegun, who we just saw in Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and who again is also in the Dune films in a small role. I love our character because he is a non-believer. He's a man with no faith, and then he's said, all this is BS. This is knowledge is power, and he eventually kind of does this scheme to get money, but he at no point. This isn't really about a man who has no faith becoming a man of faith, but it is about a man who believes in nothing to eventually believe in something bigger than himself, to not just be a selfish person and look out for himself. So we do see an interesting transformation of our character over the course of the movie. So much style, so much fun. Zach, what doesn't work about this movie?
That's a good question. I was going to say what does work. I was going to gush about Lakeith Stanfield more because he's tremendous.
Absolutely.
That kid can do no wrong. You put him in any movie and I'll watch it. I think what doesn't work, hear me out, and maybe Andy, you'll feel differently. I think there's an issue pacing, because I think Samuel is very good at filming scenes and covering like good energy throughout the scene, good movement, good geography. But when he puts it together in a final film, it starts to feel a little disjointed. There's a couple scenes in here that like feel like they're out of order. There's one scene in particular where our lead Clarence gets baptized to try to get out of basically getting beat to death by one of his debtors who he owes money to. He's like, well, if I convert to Christianity, they'll let me go, right? Like they'll be kinder. So he's leaving that and he's like soaking wet. Then we have a scene where he meets a bunch of Roman centurions, dry as a bone, and then following that he's meeting his girlfriend and he's soaking wet again. And it's like, well, that's really obviously out of order. Like that didn't go that way. And I think there's an issue with like bringing energy from scene to scene and making it feel like straight all the way through. Harder They Fall, I didn't notice this because it's such a big cast and you kind of spend time with these two different posses, but here, focusing exclusively on Clarence, you get a bit more of a, I don't know, it just feels like a long 2 hours. I will say it's split into 3 parts, which is effective and makes sense and helps you kind of pace through it. And they've got these wonderful like giant Charlton Heston like Book of Moses title cards in this big font that's really funny. And it opens on action.
Ben-Hur
and
style, yeah.
Yeah. It even opens on like a big chariot race. Yeah, very Ben-Hur-esque. Like that stuff is a lot of fun. I think that keeps it moving. I love the way it looks. I love the feel. Like I love the comedy of it, and I like our character Clarence. I like that he's got a personal stake in what's happening, and ultimately like starts to come around on this idea that hey, if I claim that if people believe in me, that has value for something. Like even if I don't believe in anything, like that's a really good journey. It just feels like a long like 2 hours 10 minutes. Did you get that at all? Am I crazy?
It's way too long, and it drags, and it's got this thing where each sequence works on its own. Like it's really funny, but it's also like watching a bunch of SNL sketches where there's not the through line isn't very neat. The writing needs to tighten up. Like this needs to be 100-minute movie, shave 20 minutes off of it, and I think you would have something really good. But it's too long. It goes on. Some of the sequences just go on too long. Like they'll be really funny, really clever, and then you get an extra 3-4 minutes that you didn't need. Each act it's split evenly. Each act is 45 minutes, which is it's kind of too long. But for me, it definitely overstays its welcome a bit. I would love to see Jeymes Samuel work with a better writer, or at least someone to rein him in a little bit, because it's one of these things where it's overindulgent. He's been allowed to do a little bit too much, and you need someone to say, hey, this doesn't work, we got to take this out, we got to cut down the time. Like you make this 105 minute movie, I think you got something, but it just goes on a little bit too long.
Right. Carrying emotion from scene to scene, right? If tragedy happens in scene A, then in scene B, our characters should be sorrowful of that tragedy. If something goofy happens in scene A, they should be maybe laughing at that or have grown in some way. Like, and that doesn't always happen in Book of Clarence. Like, and I get it. Like they're out shooting live. They got a lot going on. They got a big cast and a lot of extras, great costuming, really dusty and dirty Jerusalem. Like, I like the look and the feel of it. It feels like a much more modernized, much better looking Monty Python Life of Brian kind of feature. And I like that. I like the central conceit. Like Samuel was talking to Variety. He said this, that he's weaving a fictional tale around like things that happened in biblical times, but this is something that really happened because in Jesus' time there were like 200 or 300 people saying they were the Messiah. So the book talks about Simon. The Bible talks about Simon the sorcerer, who was another false Messiah who literally tried to buy his way into the apostles. A couple of the apostles had twin brothers. Like that's tied in. Like the Romans were crucifying people who claimed to be messiahs. All of that's real. Like, so he's just kind of weaving a few fictional characters into what's otherwise reality. And like, I think it's a big step up from Harder They Fall. I think it's big growth. I think there's a lot of really good cinematography. It's very funny. It just needs like a little bit of shaping.
Just need some discipline.
A little bit more sculpting on the table, and you got something really great.
I agree. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. The incredible soundtrack, lots of fun, great needle drops, lots of style. It kind of does the same thing in The Heart of the Day Fall, where you get these kind of like 70s funk drops at different moments. Like at the very beginning, you see after the opening scene, there's like, oh my gosh, it's the 12, and you see the 12 apostles walk in slow motion with a 70s funk track behind. Like it's just dripping with style, and this is what I love about him as a director. It just needs more polish. The other thing is like it's very funny. One of the jokes is when he goes to get baptized by John the Baptist, played by David Oyelowo. He's like, no, I'm not going to baptize you. I know you're just doing this to get out of your... And he eventually reluctantly agrees, and he like slams him under the water, just like holds him there, and he's like shaking, trying to get up. He's like, no, longer. It's not working yet. And so it's like, it's got really great humor. It's really funny.
Yeah, good time. Also, like I said, some creative cinematography. A lot of these like really great zoom lenses, like pulling way in on somebody's face up close when they realize something. A lot of play with light. They do this great gag through most of the movie where Jesus is wearing a robe and a cloak and his face is kind of blacked out. You can't really see him. And they'll use like a big pop of sunlight coming over the horizon, or like a torchlight, like open flame in front of the camera to kind of like skew the lens just enough so you can't really see. Like a lot of that's really creative. Like again, really creative cinematography. It's a good script. It's just a little chunky is all. A little chunky. Could slim it down a little. Other than that, like I think it's genuine growth from Harder They Fall. It's really good. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. Any other thoughts or recommendations, Andy?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend The Book of Clarence?
I would say this is perfect for streaming. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of style. Lakeith Stanfield he's doing some Oscar level work here in some scenes, and I remember thinking to myself, like, he's doing way too much. Like it's amazing, but he didn't have to bring that much to this film, and it's amazing that he did. It's a little bit too long. It's a little bit, again, it's a little over 2 hours. Just feels like it overstays its welcome, but it's a lot of fun. It's funny. It's got a lot of style, and I'm really excited to see what Jeymes Samuel does next. So perfect for streaming.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's a lot of fun. We VOD'd it, and if you're going to spend money on it, I would say don't spend any more than what it's currently at, which is like $7. Don't blow $20 on going out and see Book of Clarence as soon as you can. But it's a good time, and I enjoyed what we did and what it was worth. If it comes with streaming service, even better. Lots of fun. Would recommend. Boy, and that's episode 250 of Off Script. Andy, I didn't ask you about this before the show. I probably should have, but we'll just do a little live production. You're out of town next week. Do you want to phone in, or are we taking the week off? It's totally up to you. You got stuff going on. I get it.
We're taking the week off, but I'll tell you what we'll be back with. Challengers is the big release this week. This is, of course, the Luca Guadagnino film starring Zendaya, Mike Faist, and I forget the third guy. The tennis
Josh
drama.
O'Connor.
This was supposed to, thank you. This was supposed to come out back in the fall. It got delayed because of the labor strikes. So it's finally coming out. It's got a lot of buzz. We'll be checking that out. Boy Kills World also comes out this week with Bill Skarsgård, if you're interested in that. It's an action film. But the following week, the other one that we'll probably do, The Fall Guy, which is Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt's new action rom-com. That's going to kick off the summer movie season. So those would be the big two. And also, if you're interested, Tarot, the horror movie about tarot cards, comes out May 3rd as well. But we'll be doing Challengers and The Fall Guy.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. I might get out and see Boy Kills World. We'll see while you're out of town. Well, we'll see. But I'm looking forward to Challengers. And Fall Guy's been around too long, man. I had a friend, we saw something just a couple weeks ago, and they had a big standee for The Fall Guy, and he was like, what's that doing here? Didn't that come out like 6 months ago? I was like, no, that got way pushed back. That's been a whole thing. It's finally happening. They had a red carpet event. Hopefully it'll be a good time. Also, Tarot looks terrible, right?
Oh, there we go. Almost as good as MCU aside.
MCU aside. Yeah, almost as good. If you enjoyed the show today, if you like what we're doing here on Off Script, the best thing you can do to support us is just subscribe. Just subscribe to Off Script on whatever platform you're on. If you're listening to us on audio, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia, the audio version of the podcast is in all those places. If you're on video, if you're following us on YouTube, big things going on. Check out our individual reviews. Throw a follow on the channel. Hit the notification bell or whatever it is they tell you to do. We're on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, all the usual social media places. And, of course, you can check us out at offscriptfilmreview.com, our website, where you can see interviews of the content we're doing. And you can email us correspondence directly. Mail at offscriptfilmreview.com. Weigh in. Let us know what you thought of the show. Let us know what you think about 250 episodes of Off Script. Maybe a congrats for your boys or a please stop, right? Like, we'll do whatever you want. You know, we'll take it. We'll take it, whatever feedback you got. But thanks for listening. From all of us at Off Script, the home of Bold Cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for listening.